Hello, I'm Mark Kastel. I'm the co-director and I act as the Senior Farm Policy Analyst at the Cornucopia Institute. The Cornucopia Institute acts as an organic industry watchdog. We're based in Cornucopia, Wisconsin. And I'm here to talk to you today about the organic Watergate. When I first started eating a whole foods diet in the early 1970s, before there was any grocer by that name, the first thing I did was to cut out all synthetic chemicals in my diet. There was very little food at the time labeled organic. My mantra was then, as the well-known author Michael Pollan's is now, if you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't be eating it. So take a look at the list of chemicals and ingredients appearing on your screen. What do they have in common? All have been theoretically carefully reviewed and then approved for use in organics. But are they safe? That's quite a list. There are over 100 non-organic and synthetic compounds approved for use in organics. And we need to look at them all carefully. But that compares to over 3,000 synthetics in conventional food. And that's just the ingredients and the processing aids. That doesn't count the myriad of synthetic agricultural chemicals and genetic engineering that finds its way as contaminants into most conventional food. And that's why the integrity of the organic label is worth fighting for. Now, through our research at the Cornucopia Institute, it seems evident that the people doing the supposedly careful scientific reviews and approving these chemicals have mostly been affiliated with the same corporate agribusinesses, the same food producers that are lobbying for their use. And we thought organics would be different than the rest of the money-dominated corruption in Washington. If you go to our website at cornucopia.org, you'll find a proxy letter. We will deliver your message as an organic industry stakeholder to the powers in Washington who can preserve or destroy organics. Our challenge in the 8 years since we launched Cornucopia has been to help empower organic stakeholders, farmers and their urban allies, in an effort to maintain the core values that consumers respect, and which has grown this industry into a viable $30 billion marketplace. But the corporations that have gobbled up most of the pioneering organic businesses are relentless in their short-sighted pursuit of profit. Forget about the story behind the food that consumers crave. Pretty pictures on labels misrepresenting factory farms or anonymous Chinese imports are all too common now. And risky chemicals in organics? Now we have that too. But with the USDA theoretically enforcing the law, how are these improprieties possible? The answer? The organic Watergate. An incident last fall caused Cornucopia staff to do a cursory review of many non-organic and synthetic ingredients that have been approved for use in organics since the USDA took over regulation in 2002. And what do we find? A corporate and governmental conspiracy to allow almost any chemical petitioned by agribusiness in organic food, regardless of the fact that Congress mandated a review of all such substances to make sure that they will not damage the environment or human health. So let's take last November's meeting of the USDA's National Organic Standards Board, or NOSB, that was held in Savannah, Georgia. Two $12 billion corporations, Martech Biosciences, a division of the Dutch biotechnology giant DSM, and Whitewave, marketers of Horizon Organic Milk and Silk Soy Milk, a division of the dairy behemoth Dean Foods, rammed through the approval of synthetic, genetically mutated DHA and ARA nutritional oils derived from algae and soil fungus and grown in a medium of GMO corn products in organics. It shows that if you have enough lawyers and lobbyists and a USDA that seems all too beholden to corporate interests, regardless of whether it's under Democratic or Republican control, I guess you can get almost anything approved in organics. We are now pursuing a pressure campaign at the organic program in the USDA and at the National Organic Standards Board, the organic governing body, hoping to persuade them to take a look at the manipulation and misinformation at their last meeting that led to this outrageous approval and revisit the issue. Please download and sign the proxy letter that's posted at cornucopia.org to amplify our message and your voice. This shocking incident led us to look back over the past decades at the other synthetic chemicals that have been approved in organics to see if proper procedures and safeguards were followed. Guess what? For the most part, sadly, they were not. In the not too distant past, as an example, in 2008, the National Organic Standards Board reviewed a similar petition for an algae powder from a small supplement manufacturer called Synergy. They wanted to add truly natural, wild harvested algae and another strain produced without synthetic additives or processing aids. But without corporate pressure, the handling subcommittee of the full NOSB appropriately and unanimously rejected the non-organic additives based on the fact that they were not essential in organics. Just like the Martech Biosciences product, consumers who wanted non-organic algae in their diets could have easily purchased dietary supplements in addition to truly organic food. So is the congressionally mandated oversight of synthetics in all of organics taking place? When Congress passed the Organic Foods Production Act of 1990, or we say OFPA, they created a structure for reviewing any non-organic ingredient that could be included in organic food, assuring the ongoing integrity of the label. The first line of defense in congressional law is the National Organic Standards Board. Congress intentionally mandated a diversity of members: 4 farmers, 2 handlers, 3 environmentalists, a conservation expert, 3 representatives of the public or consumers, a certifier, a retailer, and a scientist. That's who was supposed to comprise the board. Such diverse representation of the organic community would work well to balance competing interests and corporate power if the intent of Congress was respected. But since the NOSB's inception, Republican and Democratic administrations have consistently abused the law. The most egregious example of this was when a corporate employee of General Mills was nominated as the consumer representative. There was such a strong backlash that her name was withdrawn, and later she was nominated and served in a slot reserved for a scientist. She might have technically qualified as a scientist, but by filling a slot with a corporate representative that Congress obviously intended as an independent voice, the board's agribusiness bias was reinforced. During the Obama administration, a full-time employee of a $700 million a year agribusiness was appointed as a farmer. And a similar farmer was just appointed to the board, this time a manager at Driscoll's, the giant, primarily conventional berry producer in California. So now let's connect the dots and look at what we call the technical reviews and how they're not working. Unlike most federal advisory panels, the National Organic Standards Board carries statutory authority. Among other responsibilities, no synthetic can be added to the national list of approved substances in organics without a review by the National Organic Standards Board. As you can see, Congress didn't set up the NOSB as a scientific panel. Instead, the diverse group of organic industry stakeholders used their expertise and judgment to vet proposed materials and policy. That's why it's imperative that they receive accurate and comprehensive and truly independent technical reviews, or what we call TRs, of all potential petitioned materials, all synthetics and organics. One of the problems with the recent MARTEC proposal was the gross level of bias exhibited in the TR supplied to the NOSB. Even though materials that are highly processed with techniques such as bleaching or deodorizing have previously been deemed as synthetic, the MARTEC materials were presented in the TR as natural. Natural? From genetically mutated strains of algae never existing before in nature? And instead of presenting independent research regarding a material, the TR was filled with biased statements without the required scientific citations. How could the NOSB use their best judgment in evaluating the MARTEC petitions without sound scientific advice? So, who has been advising the NOSB on scientific matters? We will use the stabilizer carrageenan, a seaweed derivative, as a case study, and a timely one, as it is currently up for review for a sunset reevaluation by the current NOSB. By law, all synthetic ingredients in organics must be reevaluated every 5 years. When carrageenan was first reviewed in 1995, the NOSB, as required by law, looked at the potential environmental and health impacts after examining a technical review produced by 3 experts with corporate agribusiness ties. Dr. Stephen Harper, Director of R&D at Small Planet Foods, now owned by General Mills. Dr. Richard Thoyer, a Vice President of R&D at Beechnut. And Dr. Stephen Taylor, Professor of Food Science at the University of Nebraska and defender of genetic engineering. Dr. Taylor has published studies on GMO and allergy risks, co-authored by agribusiness scientists at DuPont and Pioneer Hybrid, manufacturers of chemicals and organic seed. This technical review hardly mentioned some potential serious health impacts from degraded carrageenan, failing to cite any of the research to inform the board that historically as much as 25% of carrageenan on the market was categorized as degraded. Current research shows all types of carrageenan can degrade in the body and create serious known health impacts. A number of peer-reviewed published papers that should have been cited indicate that degraded carrageenan causes inflammation and can cause serious intestinal abnormalities. Degraded carrageenan is also considered a possible carcinogen, and it's in organic food. There is no doubt that carrageenan is an inflammatory agent. In fact, in testing anti-inflammatory drugs, laboratory animals are given carrageenan to produce inflammatory symptoms. There is no secret in the medical community that this is a problem. The technical review also failed to document the known environmental hazards from discharge of alkaline water, the deleterious impacts of seaweed farming to coral reefs, coastal ecosystems, and mangroves. By law, organics is supposed to do no harm. By law, these environmental externalities needed to be considered. And now, carrageenan is up for review again this year. As before, no negative environmental impacts and no human health threats were recognized by the NOSB's industry-friendly handling subcommittee, which unanimously, again, recommends its approval. We must oppose the relisting of carrageenan and assure that it is taken out of organic foods. It shouldn't be in any food, conventional or organic. And we need to be careful about reviews of all synthetics and organics. We need to re-review them. Please download and send in your proxy letter today. The weight of your voice will help us make this argument. Historically, a handful of experts in the industry have written the majority of technical reviews for the NOSB. And just one of them, Dr. Thoyer, who I referenced earlier, co-authored 45 of approximately 50 during a 2-year span in the 1990s, virtually all supporting adoption of the proposed synthetics in organics. Now let's look at the current technical reviews and how they're being produced by the Obama administration and USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack. Change in Washington has improved things at the USDA's National Organic Program, but it hasn't changed the cozy relationship with corporate agribusiness. I wish I was making this up, but the USDA is now contracting with the Organic Center to produce new technical reviews for the NOSB. And who's behind the Organic Center? They began as the nonprofit arm of the powerful Organic Trade Association and are generally controlled and funded by the same giant corporations that run the OTA. The rest of the Organic Center's leadership reads like a who's who of giant corporations involved in organics. Aurora Dairy, the giant distributor UNFI, the vegetable giant Earthbound Farms, Safeway Grocers, Organic Valley, Whole Foods, and no fewer than 4 individuals with financial relationships to Dean Foods and their White Wave division, again, Horizon and Silk Soy Milk. Are these the proverbial foxes we want guarding the organic chicken coop? Some of their board members are from the same companies petitioning and supporting potentially risky and unproven synthetics in organics. Are the Organic Center employees, based on who signs their paychecks, actually able to perform independent reviews? Maybe you now see why we call this the Organic Watergate. So again, I'm asking you, please sign that petition, mail it back to us. It calls for a careful scrutiny of all synthetics and organics. It calls for a creditable and independent review process and a diverse NOSB that truly reflects the composition of the organic community, and as Congress intended, the law requires the imperative to make sure we have independent oversight. And please, don't reject organics because corporations have acted recklessly and the USDA has failed to do their legally mandated job. Organic farmers and their ethical processing and marketing partners need your support now more than ever. And your family deserves authentic organic food. On behalf of the thousands of family farmers producing certified organic food that Cornucopia represents, I want to very sincerely thank Dr. Joe McCullough for his defense of the good food movement and for this opportunity to talk to you today. Thanks.